If I were to ask you what year it is, I would hope that you would respond 2025. It is the year 2025, so it is kind of mind blowing to me when you see all these betting allegations and these players in different leagues be kind of dumbfounded that they were caught or that they are not guilty. And of course, you are not guilty until proven guilty. You are innocent until proven guilty. But if you don't think the FBI has the tools that they need to really track and investigate all of this that's happening, you would be a fool. They have so much technology to figure this out. But we are in a new age, fellas, and this is something that we need to talk about here. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is a Snap Count Show. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Snap Count Show. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me today is none other than David Street.
What's up?
Ed Smith.
Go Pack Go.
And Thaddeus Lloyd.
Heyo.
Ed, it's great to have you back here this week. We missed you, but even though in your absence, the NFL continues to go on. And in the NFL right now, and actually in just in sports news, we are seeing a lot of these betting allegations take place where players are now taking bribes and getting involved in a lot of these online sports betting schemes to make extra money, as if they weren't already making enough already. But that's a topic for a different day. But this is becoming a real issue. Whether you think it is drastically bad or it's not that bad at all, it still is a topic that needs to be talked about because this is 2025. This is the day of online sports betting. It's everywhere. You could drive down a freeway and you're going to see a billboard with sports gambling on it, even if it's not even legal in your state. So I think, to me, we are seeing it, like I said, in NBA and in MLB. What's going to happen in the NFL? Ed, do you think that there may be players that are a little timid that they could be investigated if they aren't already?
There have been so many allegations and so many betting issues throughout the history of the NFL that it would not surprise me if there's already some safeguards against that happening with any NFL player, team, coaches, referees, upper management, just anybody involved. There have been levels throughout the history of this league. In fact, one of the more famous cases that I can remember off the top of my head was actually my Packers with Paul Hornung, but that was 60 years ago. So from there have been these different safeguards put in place. How 2025's commerce changes all that, that's what we're trying to figure out at this point.
Yeah, because we all know one of the greatest, betting schemes of all time was Pete Rose. Okay, Pete Rose. He's not only the hit king, but him betting on his own team to win. Okay, and that became a big issue, holding him out of the Hall of Fame. But we're seeing it happen again in the MLB, where two pitchers have now been pretty much told that, look, we caught on to you. Okay, we saw what was happening with these pitches, and the fact that they're able to track this is crazy. David, technology is just so insane that they were able to see how there was a rush of bets for these pitches to be balls. And I mean, does this shock you at all that they're able to catch on to this stuff?
No, I mean you said it yourself. With how far technology has been advancing, it doesn't surprise me that these and especially with how public gambling is as well, it doesn't surprise me that these, players got caught. And then also, I just want to add too that, admittedly, like I'm, I'm not like I should be like I'm not as concerned with gambling as much as I admittedly probably should be. Um, that's probably a character flaw of mine that for whatever reason this just doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. Like when the whole thing with the NBA went down, my first thought was, okay, well, did they murder anybody? Did they rob any banks? Like, did they harm anybody? No. Then like, who cares? And I know I shouldn't think that, and I know that this is a big deal. So if any of you could like help me understand, or anybody in the comments section, like help me understand just why this is such a big deal, because I know it is. But I'm just thinking, look, man, there's plenty of worse things that people are doing. Like, are we really going to just make a mountain out of molehill with this?
Well, I think to kind of piggyback a little bit with your comments, David, is this has probably been happening for a while. It's almost like NIL in college football now. It's like, all right, well, players have been paid for a while now. Okay, it was just kind of swept under the rug, but it has been happening for some time. But now it's, I think the worry is that this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. It could be a gateway to bigger type of sports gambling scandals. But Thaddeus, it's the prop bets that have become so big. This isn't just I'm betting for this team to win, this team to lose. It's prop bets, and the NFL today has announced that they are going to kind of highlight and shorten some of their prop bets that are on these online gambling sites. Did you read that, Thaddeus? And are you kind of surprised by that?
I'm I'm a little surprised by it, but I actually think this is a good move because if you're a gambler, um, stacking more picks is a terrible idea. Volume kills. And a lot of people now, they think they're really confident in, stacking all these bets, and then they end up losing like a lot of money because trying to get like a whole parlay, like a 14 pick parlay or something like that, it's really impossible to do. Now the potential money looks really good, but that almost never happens. And here's the crazy part: if that does happen, which has been the case a couple times, if you're really good and you get really lucky, at least one or two times, if you try to win a ton of money, you will the gambling site or company will deny you the money actually, or try to reduce your amount which you were told to get. So I mean, this is a pretty good move by the NFL in my opinion, because a lot of people don't know what they're doing when they are gambling. And it's one of those addictions, kind of like alcohol. You could have a little bit here and there, but once you get drunk or once you get put too much cash in, it's a really really bad idea, and then you end up owing more than you can afford.
Well,
So it ends up being this vicious cycle which can continue. So I really think this is a good idea by the NFL. As far as like my thing with like players betting, I remember the example I remember was Calvin Ridley about 5 years ago when he got caught gambling and he was axed for an entire season. Like they wouldn't let him play for a whole season, and then he was let go by the Falcons. I remember. So the NFL is pretty stringent on that, which I think is pretty good. Unlike some of the other leagues, I guess. But yeah, that's what I think on that.
Well, now, hang on a second, and I'll ask this question to you, Ed, since you haven't had a chance to talk yet. But like, if there is so Thad says that the gambling apps can actually, like, if you try to win too much money, they can prevent you from getting that money. Well, wouldn't that be theft in that case? Because there was an agreement that was made, right? You won that money fair and square, and now you're not going to get it. Like that's theft, isn't it? You're muted, Ed.
this is where the high price lawyers really are a big deal when it comes to these gambling sites, because they will write these contracts that you have to agree to gamble on these sites, and it's offshore. This isn't that it used to be offshore. Now certain states allow it to be, well, within the states, because of the ruling from the courts. But they write these contracts out of these different states, and you have to agree to them. So the language that's in the contract can state something to the effect of, well, because you had so many different bets hit on a single parlay, we think that you're cheating in some way, and we will offer you this amount in place of going to court over whether or not you're cheating. So
Mm.
that's so it becomes a negotiating thing for the site and the company that's putting this on, as opposed to them actually stealing it, because they're actually threatening legalities, uh, instead of paying up because they think that you cheated to get that many bets to hit at one time.
Okay.
Yeah, and for those of you out there that maybe aren't familiar with what prop bets are, uh, long story short, you could bet on just about anything nowadays. The two most popular bets nowadays in sports is the coin toss at the Super Bowl and the over under on the national anthem at the Super Bowl. These are just two of very few, or two of many different props that you could bet in now when it comes to sports. So I just kind of want to put that out there, that this is where we've come to. And yes, the dopamine rush is, it's unlike no another, and that's why gambling is such a big addiction to a lot of people. But I think it's just you're going to start seeing more cases of it, or now that the FBI is really hunkered down, maybe people will actually back off from doing some of these schemes. Ed?
Well, my favorite prop bet right now is, when is Thaddeus going to get facial hair to match the rest of us?
When are y'all going to get facially hair to match mine? Okay.
Look,
I
I tried.
mean,
I tried
I
that.
can't grow that.
Yeah,
Can't grow.
that
Best,
Chuck.
best I can do is head, but that's going to take me another 30 years. So
mm,
Yeah, it's well seasoned. I mean, it's just that chia stuff isn't really there yet. It's going to take some time, but that's enough about this sports gambling stuff. There's still probably more to come, and this, like I said, the tip of the iceberg. We're probably going to hear some more instances, especially in the NFL, where people have been caught on this. Even though they have certain measures in place, there's always loopholes around stuff. So. The next topic I want to talk about is we got a firing that took place in the NFL. Wouldn't be the NFL nowadays without a mid-season fire, and well, that was none other than New York Giants head coach Brian Dable. David, did this surprise you at all, seeing this firing,
no.
or why did it take so long?
I mean, maybe it taking it this long was surprising, but no, I'm not surprised that Dayball got fired at all. And it really comes down to Jackson Dart and how well he's been playing. I didn't watch the last Giants game, but my understanding is that they were up by double digits and they collapsed and lost that game. So the firing of Brian Dayball, they were up by how much?
They've done that 3 times
Yeah.
True. Yes.
in the last
True.
month.
Yeah. So to me, this basically says, listen, we have our franchise guy in Jackson Dart, and we cannot waste his potential with you. So we're moving on. Really, just came down to that.
Yeah, I definitely, Ed.
I was actually a little surprised, because Jackson Dart coming in, he's very talented. He's a very assertive kid coming into a New York area, which, coming from Oxford, Mississippi to New York City, that's quite a jump. And he's fit in perfectly with that organization and with the town. Him losing his best friend, Cam Scatterboo, a couple of weeks ago, that was kind of a turning point for the morale of the team, because those two guys together, I think, are going to make magic over the years once Scadaboo becomes healthy again because they just have an edge to them. That is a piece of clay that Brian Daboll can work with and mold and get better with. Why would you let him go in the middle of the season and let Jackson Dart just sit adrift with some interim head coach that has nothing to do with what Jackson Dart's growth is going to be long term? That part makes absolutely zero sense to me because Daboll got the job for what he did with Josh Allen, molding him. So why would you not let him mold Jackson Dart? Even if you knew you were going to fire him at the end of the season, let him continue that teaching process through the end of this year.
Well, let me ask you this, Ed, and not to dispute most of what you said, but was it really more so Brian Daboll that helped Josh Allen, or was it the sports psychologist that he saw? Because didn't Josh Allen see a sports psychologist, and that I'm not saying the sports psychologist was 100% responsible, but it seems like he or maybe she was, held a lot of that responsibility for Josh Allen being the player he is today.
The combination of the psychologist, Dayball, and the organization, because the Buffalo Bills have become one of those organizations that I talk about all the time, where winning starts from the ownership down, and that is what the Buffalo Bills are. You take a look at what both teams in New York are right now. Losing starts from the ownership down. And
New Jersey.
So when it comes to Dayball, though, I think he's more of the scapegoat for the GM because the GM's still there. He's the one that gave him crappy players to begin with. So what's he going to do?
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean they definitely have to point a finger at someone, and it was Dable. Do I think Dable could have been their future? No, I don't think so. Ed, I get the firing, but I do agree with you, Ed, because you have a rookie quarterback. This isn't how you want to start things with him. Is now all he sees is, well, once coach does bad, they're going to be fired, and are they going to go through a mirage of coaches at this point in a young quarterback's career, and that's just not ideal for any franchise. So that does leave a lasting effect on Jackson Dart. But Thaddeus, who do you see maybe taking over for head coach eventually? I know it's interim right now, but New York is a big market team, so I would expect someone bigger at head coach.
Yeah, I mean there'll be a couple coordinators this year. Interim coordinators have not done a great job though, coming in. So I don't know who's gonna be. It might be I'm gonna guess it's actually gonna be a college coach. Honestly, that's kind of what it seems like. But no, as far as like the situation, like why Dable got fired, I actually kind of get it. Countering Ed's point because Dable, his first, he was hired in 2022. They went 7-2 his first 9 games. Since then, he's the past 3 seasons, he's won 11 games since then. So the record has not been great, and I actually think this now. Personally, I would not have fired him midway through the season, but it makes sense because Jackson Dart is currently out with his second concussion in a row because there were 20 designed quarterback runs last Sunday. So he was already getting banged up. And Jameis Winston is starting for the Giants this Sunday, so we're going to see how that goes. Obviously, Russell Wilson didn't help Daboll's position earlier this year, but also another thing I would say is just like why is Shane Bowen still the defensive coordinator? Why? He's one of the worst defensive coordinators. He's the prime example of why prevent defense prevents wins. It's been said now for a couple years. Prevent defense prevents wins. And Shane Bowen has exemplified that because they've had, like we've said, they were leading in the fourth quarter 3 times by double digits and they've lost all of them. So it just got to a point someone had to be fired. Might as well be Dable because he just hasn't done a great job with the record. I'm going to be interested to see where he goes. Some people would say Buffalo, but Sean McDermott, I think, would have to get fired because the reason Daboll left was because he didn't really get along with McDermott. Maybe McDermott gets fired, they hire Daboll. Who knows? But I just thought it kind of had to happen, but probably should have waited until the end of the season.
I have a name for who the Giants might consider for head coach, and it's the guy with probably the best name among all the coordinators, the Indianapolis Colts OC Jim Bob Cooter.
I,
I've got a college coach that would make complete sense to go to New York.
Ed's gonna say it. Let's see who.
Here, let's hear you say it.
Bill Belichick.
Oh, I was totally expecting you to say Sarkisian, honestly.
Nope.
Nah,
Bill
that,
Belichick makes so much sense in New York.
yeah, I mean that was actually one of the first names they floated around once it happened. It was
Or how about Chucky?
any way to get Bill Belichick back in the NFL. I mean, things aren't going well in North Carolina.
Well, you know who I would like to see back is the coach turned podcaster.
John Gruden.
John Gruden,
John
yeah,
Gruden.
Chucky. Yeah, unfortunately, we may
Was the
never.
scandal too much?
But I don't know. Maybe one day. One day. I like John Gruden, but we'll
Listen,
see.
He's been
as
the most decent Raiders coach the past 15 years.
well, as a fan of a team that employed John Gruden, okay, I don't really see why people are hyping him up. Like, do people forget so easily that he won a Super Bowl with someone else's players and then was just mediocre after that? Like, did people just forget about that?
Hey,
I mean, I look at his more recent history with the Raiders because he actually did a decent job with a average, below average Raiders roster. I mean, that's the only time they've went to the playoffs was when he was coached the past 15 years.
don't hate on Derek Carr. Well, I'll tell you what. You know whose name they may consider him to come back in the NFL one day. Matt Patricia, with what he's doing over at Ohio State. I mean, there are some coaches that will do better in college, and Matt Patricia may be one of them. But sometimes they just get that courage of going back to college, doing well, and maybe they feel like they could come back up. But we'll see. um, I was gonna do an idiot of the week, but I really think these two games that I want us to preview are way more important than that. I want to take some time because I think these two games possibly could be two of the game of the years, and it's going to have a lot of implication on possibly who wins their divisions. The first game I want to preview here is the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. This game is taking place in LA, and this is a perfect time for this matchup. These two teams are hot right now. Okay, like Will Ferrell would say on Zoolander, that Sam Darnold's real hot right now. Okay, right. So it's just this is what if you're a fan of the NFL, these are the matchups that you're really wanting to see because this could implicate who wins the NFC West. Okay. The Seahawks, they did make a big move on the trade deadline, adding more speed at the wide receiver position, which we talked about last week. Okay. The Rams, even though they've had some injuries, Puka Nacua, they are still playing at a high level. Matthew Stafford is actually looking phenomenal. And crazy enough, this is a stat that I saw this week that really blew my mind. This is the first time in Matthew Stafford's entire NFL career he's had a career 500 record. Because you got to remember those years early on for the Lions were really bad for them. But he is now finally in his first time in his career at 500 career record. So it was just shocking to me because Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback. So Thaddeus, first question I want to ask you because you played the Rams this last week, so you're going to be fresh on this. Who implores the better running game in this matchup, you think? The Seahawks or the Rams? Because no one really talks about that much.
Yeah, everyone's talking about the quarterbacks, but the funny thing is that the Seahawks have actually not had a great run game this year. It was only Sam Darnold's actually been just mastering the offense basically. Charbonnet and Walker basically been splitting carries evenly. Charbonnet with like a little bit better reps, I guess. But they finally had a good game against the Cardinals, but that was because they were already up, 28-0 before the end of the first half. So they ran the ball like almost 50 times. So I it might be coming alive, but I really trust this Rams run offense because Kyron Williams, while he's not a top tier running back, is a tier below. So he's still a really solid running back. He had a great day against the Niners as he usually does. Um, and Blake Corum, he's all right, but he's a good special teamer, in my opinion. So I really think the Rams have a better run game. Just Sean McVay, probably just a better run run schemer. Um, and he's always had success, always building off of the run. They're not always a passing offense, even though it looks like it with Matthew Stafford, probably being the front runner for MVP right now. So it's going to be a tough test. Both these defenses are very good. The Rams front is its best point. It was mainly the secondary that's been a concern this year. So we're gonna have to see the secondary versus Sam Darnold and JSN. That should be a really intriguing matchup. JSN literally might go over 100 yards for the ninth out of 10th time this year, which is which has been crazy. Although they did get Shaheed, maybe Rashid Shaheed can expose the secondary as well. So there's that, and then the Rams offense versus the Seahawks defense. I think Matthew Stafford is literally, even though he's one of the oldest QBs in the NFL, and he's played for a decent level for most of his career, this literally might be the best ball of his career because he's got Devontae Adams and Puka Nakua, and they literally have three tight ends which can all run routes. It's kind of crazy. So they got weapons everywhere. Matthew Stafford's just dealing it. I think the last three games he has like 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. So it's been an offensive explosion for the Rams since they got off their bye. Um, as far as like prediction, it's going to be really hard because the one thing, obviously, I said like the JSN versus the Ram secondary. The one thing you really want to look at this though is Sam Darnold himself because last year, and the reason why people were so down on the Seahawks at the beginning of the year, including myself, I was really down on them, was how like Sam Darnold was going to be in the Seahawks system. Like we didn't think the O line was going to be good. We knew Sam Darnold had the talent, but is he going to put it together? He showed most of last season, but fell off the last couple of games. We're like, is that Sam Darnold just going to be who he is? Well, turns out probably not because he's played, I'd say, good to below average team so far this year, and he's looked amazing. This will be the true first test for Sam Darnold to see if he can step up to the plate. Because I really think if he loses to the Rams, has a bad game, there will be a wrap because it can be he can play really well against the bad teams. This is kind of like what the mantra has been for Dak Prescott. He can put up the numbers, he can beat all the bad teams, but once it comes to a good team, he's going to struggle really bad. So I think this game is going to be the point at where you either say Sam Darnold is your bridge quarterback, which is kind of who you signed him for, or will he be the franchise quarterback for the next 5, 7 years? So as far as prediction goes, I think it's going to be a tight contest. NFC West, it normally is. Um, it's honestly a flip up to see who's going to win. Give me the Rams though. It's just Matthew Stafford has just been unstoppable. I mean, Sam Donald has too, but I just give the slight edge to Matthew Stafford in this one. So give me the Rams 27-24.
Ed, I got to ask you this one because you are our resident Packers fan. So you saw firsthand what Devontae Adams can do. Would you say the X factor in this game could be the possible wide receiver room for the LA Rams or just the wide receivers in this game in general for both teams?
It's definitely going to be that room in and of itself that is the most interesting to watch. I don't think the game is going to turn on the receiving core of each team, because when you look at Seattle, you've got JSN, as you've mentioned a couple times, Thaddeus, but you've got Cooper Cup, and who is LA Rams' version of Cooper Cup? Puka Nakua. And then you've got Devontae Adams, JSN. So it's the older and younger, and then younger and older
Yeah.
version of those. So they're very mirrored in that aspect. One thing that I'm looking at, actually, there's a couple of things I'm looking at in this game, is the fact that the Rams have, over the last 3 games, had 60% of the time of possession, which means that they are using that passing game and the run game to control the clock and keep the other team on the sideline. Well, that's going to make it even harder for Sam Darnold to work with, because one of the stories that aren't really being talked about in all these prognostications is the fact that his center's out. Sam Darnold's center is out here as we get into the latter stages of this season. So that consistency of getting the ball to Sam Darnold is disrupted. And when we look at what Sam Darnold did last year, as the pressure started to mount through the season, you started to see Sam Darnold press. He would sail balls over the receivers' heads and lead to more turnovers. When you combine that with the fact that the Seahawks are the have uh, given up the ball in the top 10 of the league as far as worst giveaways in the league. I do see that this game isn't going to be just a slugfest one possession game. I really do think the Rams are going to take over this game and show their dominance of the NFC West, and it's going to be 31-17.
David, before you give your predictions, you are a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, so you're in the NFC. You're right now. You're in the playoff picture by far. If the playoffs were to start tomorrow, what team would you not want to play between these two teams, and why?
Oh, the Seahawks easily. Because for one thing, Bucks fans, we've personally seen just how good the offense is, um, and you know, and also just the wave of momentum that Seattle is riding right now. Yeah, obviously the Cardinals are not exactly the best team. I mean, I predicted them to win the NFC West, and well, that's that take has aged like rotten milk. But even so, you can't deny the momentum that they're riding right now. And what I really like about this matchup, guys, is that it's a battle of two of the best young coaches in the game, in Mike Macdonald and Sean McVay. And they're both geniuses on the opposite side of the ball. So Sean McVay is a genius on the offensive side of the ball. And people don't really talk about Mike Macdonald being a defensive genius, but I think it is time that we start talking about him as a defensive genius, because the last time the Ravens defense was good, you knew who their defensive coordinator was? It was Mike Macdonald. Since Mike Macdonald left to become the coach of the Seahawks, the Ravens defense has completely fallen apart. Like, you can say there's been injuries and whatnot, but it is not a coincidence that as soon as Mike Macdonald leaves for another job, the defense goes from historically great to below average just like that. And we talk about the Seahawks offense, and yes, it's been amazing, but guys, the Seahawks quietly have a top three, top five defense, and absolutely nobody is talking about them. Now, it's easy to understand why, because they don't really have the boisterous, outgoing personalities like the guys of the Legion of Boom did. These guys are more like quiet, just will let the results speak for themselves. and certainly the results have been speaking for themselves. So offense has been great. It's you know, um, it's been getting a lot of praise, well deserved. But guys, this defense has been great as well, and it's been arguably the most underrated unit in the entire league. So I'm going to take the Seahawks over the Rams here. I'm going to take them 29 to 21.
Yeah, the Seahawks, they have definitely had their moments this year, especially on the offensive side of the ball, too. And that's kind of where I want to see how things play because if Sam Darnold is struggling to throw the ball, especially without his center there, we know they don't really have a running game to fall back on, whereas the Rams, they do. That's where I think this game is really going to be decided is because of that run game. We all know Sam Darnold, he has done great recently in the regular season, but on these bigger games, he goes back to his old self and starts seeing ghosts again. So that's something to keep an eye out on because if the turnovers start happening and start flooding in, this game can get out of hand real fast, just like Ed alluded to. So because of that and because of what history has shown, I do have to go with the Rams here, especially at home. I think that they're going to pull out this victory. It's going to be 27-20. And I think the running game really does it. The fact that they have been controlling the time of possession is killer. I know that doesn't always mean a whole lot, but in a game against a division rival where it is expected to be close, controlling the ball more of the game, I think, is going to have better results. So that's why I'm going to go with the Rams 27-20 in this game.
Do
Yeah, well,
you?
and also, if I can bring up a point actually on that, if you remember when the Rams played the Saints 2 weeks ago, they had a historic time of possession. Now, not a lot of people knew about it, but they literally had the ball for 3/4 of that game. They controlled the ball for 3 full quarters combined.
Uh,
So, time of possession really, really does matter when, even if you don't think it does.
I'm curious. Do you of what I said? Do you guys agree or disagree with me that Mike McDonald should be labeled as a defensive genius? And biggest piece of evidence is that the Ravens going from historically great to below average the minute he leaves. Ed.
I think a big portion of the Ravens' issues this year have been injuries, both on offense and defense. It's not just Lamar that got hurt. If there were defensive replacements all over the field. And that's why we are starting to see not only since Lamar's come back, we've also seen the Ravens get healthy on the defensive side of the ball. So that congruency is coming back. And that's why I a few weeks ago said that even though the Ravens started 1-5, they're going to win that division. And at this point, there are all signs pointing that way. So yes, Mike McDonald is really a really great coordinator, and he deserves this opportunity in Seattle to be the head coach. I just want to pump the brakes a little bit on both of these teams, really, because if you look at the last four opponents on both of these ledgers, it isn't like they're playing the 85 Bears. They're more playing like the lower half of the league,
the bad news bears.
the bad news Bears, really. Because for the Seahawks, we were talking about Jacksonville, Houston, Washington, and Arizona. Not world beaters. Probably not great, not going to be playoff teams. Baltimore, when before they get the Rams, played Baltimore, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and San Francisco. Now, I just talked about Baltimore. They had been injured up until just about 2 weeks ago. So that was before everything came together for them. So they're both riding this wave of positive energy, but against bad teams. I think overall between these two teams, I think the Rams are a better team. Seahawks definitely have some bright points that could win this game, but I do think the Rams are the better team coming into this week.
Yep, it's easy. Or I understand, why we're seeing that. The last game I want to talk about is another division matchup here, and This is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. We are seeing kind of a shift kind of take place, even though the Chiefs did lose to the Buffalo Bills. I still think that we're seeing kind of a momentum change here in the AFC West, but the Broncos are still winning games. Whether they're ugly or not, they are still winning games, and their record could be a whole lot different if a penalty didn't happen, okay? But at the end of the day, the Broncos are leading the AFC West right now, so you have to give them respect where it's due. But at the end of the day, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. What makes this game big is, of course, the Chiefs right now are in third place. So naturally, yes, they need to win this game in order to propel themselves in this division. But I think it's the Broncos that need to win this game the most, because if they don't win this game, it could change drastically for them, especially with you have the Chargers right there at second that could leapfrog them up to first. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and they could easily take this division again if they really want to. So I think that's just a big storyline there. And how are the Broncos going to handle that pressure, knowing they need to win this game? And their fans are a little restless, especially after last week's performance against the Raiders, that they're expecting results. And what better way than to do that than against the Kansas City Chiefs, all right? The defending AFC champs, and you're at home. You really need this win, especially against them. Everybody wants to beat Patrick Mahomes because it does mean something to a lot of franchises to beat Patrick Mahomes. So the Broncos want that. They really need it too. They don't just want it, they need it, because this could change big time. Is it really going to happen though? I don't think so. And I know we're going to talk more into this, especially Ed's got some good talking points here, which I'll eventually go over to him. But the Broncos are banged up, especially on defense of the side of the ball. And Patrick Mahomes, at the end of the day, I can't really doubt him. He hasn't really done much for me to doubt him. And his receiving core has now just gotten better ever since Rashid Rice came back. That they're looking good on offense. I know they didn't look the best against the Bills, but at the end of the day, I think this offense is really going to propel themselves in this game. Give me the Chiefs winning this one, and I really don't think it's going to be close. I'm sorry, Broncos. I'm sorry, Broncos fans. Give me the Chiefs winning this game 32-17. Ed, there are some key injuries in this game, and there are some key stats when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. What are you looking at in this game with Mahomes, especially with this secondary? You're muted.
With the Broncos secondary having some issues on the back end, they I think they are going to be more susceptible to Patrick Mahomes and this wide receiving core. The way that the Broncos have been playing on the back end has been more aggressive. So you're going to see more of these pass interference, holding, being very physical with the wide receivers. And we all know when it comes to Kansas City and getting the call, that seems to be a thing. So, you know, just about as much as the Eagles getting the ability to have a full second head start on a tush push. But I digress. So, with that in mind, Patrick Mahomes is going to take complete advantage of this back end of the Denver defense, and it's going to be ugly because Travis Kelsey is way too big, and for all the Travis Kelsey haters that have been out there, he's the number one the number one receiving tight end in football right now. So he may have lost a step, but he's gained knowledge on how to get better. So that is in full view of everybody as of right now. With Rashee Rice, being able to compliment him, that has been fantastic. Xavier Worthy is questionable, although I don't see a way where he doesn't play. He just may not be as effective with the speed sweeps and the reverses like to use him for. When it comes to uh, the need on this game, I don't think the Broncos necessarily need this game because these two teams will play again in about 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. So it's not a huge deal for the Broncos because they have a 3 game lead on the Chiefs right now. But if they can pull this out, then that uh, puts the Chiefs another game behind, and they play the Colts next week. This makes this game a must win for the Chiefs, be, more so than the Broncos. So with their back against the wall, with everything, you know, as a need, it's hard to bet against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in this situation. So I'm going to take the Chiefs, uh, but I will take them in more of a last minute drive, just because that's the way all the Broncos games have been played at this point. So I'm going to take the Chiefs at 23-21.
David, what do you think the Broncos need to do to win this game?
They just need to rely on their defense. And you guys want to hear an absolutely mind blowing stat that shows how good the Denver defense has been? The Broncos are 3-0 in games this year where the offense has scored 10 or fewer points. Let me repeat that. They are 3-0 in games where the offense has scored 10 or fewer points. You hear a stat like that, you would think the team would be 1-2 or 0-3. And that's how great Denver's defense has been. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is the same defense that gave up 70 points to Miami a couple of years ago. And I might add, they still have Vance Joseph, the exact same defensive coordinator. I Ed, I know you were more gracious to the Broncos in your prediction, but Matthew, I gotta say, I don't really quite understand why you think the Chiefs are going to, win this game so easily. And the reason why I say that is because, I think not just you guys, but I think are still. I think people still think that for whatever reason this is the same Chiefs team that we've seen before. Guys, like the Chiefs are third in their division. Like they've been very inconsistent, and they very well could miss the playoffs. I know that sounds hard to believe, and do I think they're going to miss the playoffs? No, but for the first time in the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era, there is a legit possibility that they could, miss the playoffs. And yes, our offense has been great, probably a lot better than we all thought. But guys, the Denver Broncos also recently utterly demolished the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys as a whole are not a good team, but that offense is good. That offense is the best, if not top three in the league. And Denver just completely shut them down. So I'm not really buying this whole narrative of the Chiefs' offense is going to have their way with Denver's defense at all. And if you guys want to counter that, I'm more than happy to hear it. But my prediction, I think Denver is going to win, but I think it'll be a close one. I'm going to take them over Kansas City, 26-20.
Well, I guess a mini rebuttal would be is Denver would have been blown out by the New York Giants if it wasn't for that big collapse. And at the end of the day, I'm going to choose the Kansas City Chiefs offense over the New York Giants offense. So I think that was a pretty big deal. That was more of a collapse on the Giants standpoint, and Bo Nix just went off in that fourth quarter. So give him credit there. But it wasn't the defense that helped them win that game. It was the offense. Yes, their defense has helped them win many games. And yes, I do have to give them more respect. But one point that Ed brought up, and he keeps doing it. He keeps bringing up the points that I'm going to bring up, but with how great the Broncos are at sacking the quarterback, I'm going to have to say that a couple of those sacks are going to get called back for probably roughing the passer or something. It's just a given. It really is. So they're going to fall on top of Mahomes, and he's going to get that flag called on him. So I think that really is going to help their drives continue more. And the last team that you want to give these extra opportunities are the Chiefs. So that's kind of my mini rebuttal right there.
And not to mention, you're going to have Rashee Rice on Jade Barron, a rookie uh, out of Texas. I don't think that that's a fair matchup for the Broncos in that scenario. Uh, the Broncos may be able to attack and get to Patrick Mahomes, but we've all seen Mahomes be a magician and get the ball out. And guess who's he's going to get the ball to? He's going to get the ball to Kelsey, and he's going to look at this matchup between Jade Barron and Rashee Rice and just be licking his chops the entire time.
And lastly, there are many reasons why Mahomes is a great quarterback, but one of them is he's one of the best quarterbacks at going through his progressions, even if he is on his feet running. He goes through all of his progressions to see where he could get it to, and if he needs to, he'll throw the ball away, and that's where it's like, yeah, the Denver Broncos may lock down two of their receivers, but he'll go through his progressions and find someone to dump it down to. He always does. So, Thaddeus, I think the Broncos, yes, they have a great defense, but the Chiefs have always had a great defense, especially in the playoffs. We aren't really talking about them much this year. Why is that?
It felt like, especially in the beginning of the year, when the offense had a lot of injuries, that the Chiefs just kind of fell apart a little bit, or just weren't as great as we used to see them at the beginning of the season. But then the offense started getting healthier, and I think Spags, he's an elite defensive coordinator, so he finally was somewhat able to get this defense going. Now they did play a stinker against the Bills, which the Bills have also been up and down this year. It's crazy to think that midway through the season, and the Broncos, Colts, and one more team.
The Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots are all 8-win teams vying for the number one seed right now. Patriots are currently up 21-7 on the Jets. They got a really easy schedule. I think. So it's going to be really telling. Now we obviously all expected the Chiefs to win the division, but if the Chiefs don't win this game, the division will be out of hand for sure. Because they'll be sitting at 5-5 with the current ninth seed, I believe, because they're right now at the eighth seed. So the AFC, it's starting to get a little more compact there. The Ravens are coming up at 4-5 right now. Even though they are 4-5, they're one of the best 4-5 teams ever. So you got that push from behind. So there's going to be that, and then also Andy Reid off a bye is crazy. He's 22-4 off of a bye in his 26-year NFL head coaching career. So just give me Andy Reid off the bye. Just do it. But also as far as this individual game goes, I've got big problems with the Denver offense. They put up 44 points against the Cowboys and 33 points against the Giants. Yeah, those are some of the worst defenses in the NFL. When they played other ones, one of the worst games, it depends on how you look at it, but one of the worst games was last Thursday. Broncos Raiders. How could that Broncos offense only put up 10 points against a maligned Raiders defense? How is that possible? I was just stunned at how that happened. And Bo Nix, you're like, oh, okay, he played the Texans. They put up 18 points against the Texans, right? But then they lay this stinker against the Raiders. So if the defense isn't doing like literally everything in its power to keep this team afloat, it's going to fall apart. And I fully trust. Now, I don't think Mahomes is going to explode on this defense or anything like that, but they're going to have enough juice to get past 10 points against this Broncos defense. And that should be enough to win the game, I believe. So I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one as well, 17-10, because I just do not trust that Broncos offense at all. Bo Nix has not been the worst quarterback, but he's definitely not been great. Statistically, he's been a great fourth quarter quarterback and been a terrible 1-3 quarterback. So I just don't trust him to come back against a really good, or at least a really solid Chiefs defense. This is the first real offense they've been facing since they lost to the Colts, I believe.
Well, the number one lockdown cornerback in the NFL so far this year is Pat Surtain, who is going to be missing this game, and that is a big loss for Denver. The number two lockdown cornerback in the NFL, Trent McDuffie, who will be playing in this game. So I think that's something to keep an eye out on and look at as an X factor there. But nonetheless, these are two great games, big matchups that need to be talked about and need to be kept an eye out on. So if they are on your local channel this week, I urge you to watch these games. Before we take off, though, Thaddeus, how are our records looking? I know this last week was not pretty for me.
It was not pretty for three people. I was the only one with a winning record. um, yeah, so it was not great for a lot. David and Matt went 1-3. Ed went 0-4. I went 3-1. I was the only one to pick the Patriots last week against the Bucks too. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so that still has David at the bottom at 12. Yeah, no, 11-23. And then third place is Ed at 13-21. Matt still not a losing record, but 17-17. And then I am 5 games ahead at 22-12.
Yeah, I mean, the last week was not a good week. It's just one of those. We've been having weird weeks, but I think I've learned I can't doubt the Patriots right now. I really can't. I was thinking the Bucks were gonna have a good game against them last week, but the Patriots, I think, even though Ramondre Stevenson went down, Travion Henderson is doing great things. He's already doing it again tonight against. I know it's the Jets, but
Well, he's got a hat trick
yes,
against the Jets.
yeah, well, that's not saying much, but hey, that's a JV football team at this point. Sorry, Aaron Glenn, you probably should have just stayed in Detroit.
I just saw a statistic. The Jets have forced 1 turnover all season, which is worst in NFL history.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So, well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please continue to hit that like, subscribe button. Let us know how you feel. Hit us up in the comment section. Give us your thoughts, your opinions, and let us know if we're right. Let us know if we're wrong. We want to hear from you guys for sure. So be sure to tune in next week, guys. That's the final whistle. We'll catch you next week.